As we begin today to share this special time together, to talk about our most beloved, Bernie Beckerman. He was someone who was greatly respected and liked by so many. But as we seek to tell the story of his life, to share all the really good things about who he is as a person, we are torn between two different ways of sharing his life with you. On one hand, there are just so many stories, so many amazing examples of what a person can do and be, of how unique he was in so many special ways. But we could tell all these stories over and over, hours and hours, but that would be forgetting one key thing about who Bernie was. The most important thing to him as a person was that he would be a humble man. He just wanted to be a simple, regular guy like everyone else. And so having all these great stories told about him and all of these extensive tales about his life would not feel so good to him. He would probably rather have a toothache or a pain in his side than to have to hear too much about the life that he led. But at the same time, he was an easygoing guy. He didn't always agree with us, and he let things slide if it wasn't too much of a big deal. So today we hope to make a compromise, to share some stories about him, but not too many, so as to make him upset or angry that we overdid it today. And it wasn't just from him to keep the service short, it was what his family wanted also. Like him, his family are simple people, not wanting to make a big deal about things. But the thing is, some people you may not feel right telling this whole story of their life. What if people just don't know? What if you didn't share something important that we all need to know about his life? But it's not the case with Bernie. If you think about him as a person, he spent his whole life getting to know people, making sure that he knew them and they knew him. And that there's no sense like, oh no, they didn't really know what was important about me, or there wasn't an understanding. He knew everyone so well, his children, his grandchildren, his friends, and business associates. They were all so close. They all know what a dear person it is that we miss and are saddened to lose today. So we'll try our best to keep it short, but please forgive us if we go over just a little bit. I wanted to share with you a selection from the Psalms. We read the familiar Psalm 23, whose theme is that God is our shepherd and watches over us in good times and bad times. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo yixar, Binai steshech yarbitzeni, al mei menuchos yinachaleni, Nafshi yeshovev yancheni v'maglei tzedek laman shemo, Gam ki elach begeit salmaves, lo yirara ki ata imadi, Shivtecha o mishantecha, hema yanachamoni, Tairach lefanai shulchan, neged sarai, Yishante v'shemen roshi, kosi revaya, Achtov v'chesed yirdefuni, kol yemei chayai, V'shavte v'beis adinoi, la'orech yamim. A Psalm of David. God is my shepherd, I shall not lack. In lush meadows he lays me down, beside tranquil waters he leads me. He restores my soul. He leads me on paths of justice for his name's sake. Though I walk in the valley overshadowed by death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in view of my torments. You anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for many long days. Our beloved Bernie was born September 5th, 1924, in Cleveland, the middle child to Russian immigrants, who even after a very difficult life, many pogroms and difficulties and so many horrible things, came to these shores, came to the United States with their own sense of idealism still intact, clutching onto the ideas of socialism, that even in this new country where it was about making money and being successful, it was mainly for them about taking care of other people and making sure people had what they needed and what they deserved. Bernie grew up in the Glenville neighborhood, just off of East 105th Street. And this is all known to us, this neighborhood, of being a very rich, very close community of Jewish immigrant families. Such a strong work ethic, such amazing people came out of the Glenville neighborhood to be great successes today. But Bernie didn't brag about any of this stuff. This success wasn't as important to him. The only success that he talked about from his childhood had to do with the basketball court. As we all know, he wasn't much of a man in terms of stature. He was a mere 5'4". Some people say 5'6", but it has not been well proven. And he used all of his inches to succeed in the basketball court. And he spent some time being a big success in the Glenville basketball team. And he had a pretty simple, pretty easygoing childhood, hanging out with lots of friends, sneaking into baseball games, and spending time with his father, who was a tailor, and helping out in the family shop. Like for many, life changed when the war came, and he did his service in the army. He spoke very little of these days. In fact, what little we know about his army service came from a few old documents put in a shoebox a long time ago. But we did figure out that he served in the southern Philippines, and he was a longshoreman, a person who stood on a boat and muscled ropes and heavy things to keep the boat going all day long. We don't even know if he saw combat. He just simply never talked about it in his humility. He might have been there during the time where the Allies were fighting the Japanese, or maybe not. We don't know. Bernie returned home, and he went into the dry cleaning business, but he realized quickly that this kind of business was not for him. In fact, he hated it. He started learning quickly about general contracting. He had to learn a lot, from putting in a nail to putting something much more advanced into place. But with a lot of hard work and time and patience and determination, he and a partner had it going. And soon enough, Bernie Construction would be a big success. But the main thing to Bernie wasn't the business. It was the people. It was his family. He met Beatrice in 1943, and they would be married a very happy 40 years, raising 3 lovely girls, Rochelle, Robin, and Joni. He gave his girls a lot, all kinds of life lessons, but not too hard. But the only lesson he pushed on them was sports. You got to be somebody in the sports world. And unfortunately, at that time, the world wasn't ready for the girls' sports team that he envisioned, but soon enough, it would be in the coming generations. And he was the kind of person where he loved his girls, but sports also were in there very importantly. And it's kind of a funny coincidence that the happiest moment in his life, the birth of his daughter, in October 1948, coincided to the day with the winning of the Indians in the championship. And he always used to say that was the reason it was my happiest day. And something else, I don't know what, happened at the same time. He got to see his girls grow up and be great people. And I don't want to say too much about them, but they really are. And you could see how they really steered the ship of their own families, how they took their family through these difficult times with such strength. And you see that they chose great guys, great husbands, who Bernie really liked and accepted as his own sons. At this point, you might be thinking, wow, he's really overdoing it. This is way more than Bernie would have wanted. So the only way that I can save myself is talking about something that was a little bit silly about Bernie that he may not have looked at as a great accomplishment, but might have settled things down as far as making him look too fancy. The one thing that he was really good at, besides these practical things, was that he really loved to sleep. Yes, sleep. Sleep was a skill, a hobby, and a mission. It was very important to him. And Blanche tells a funny story that we all know he loved to play golf, and he loved his family. So the only way to make the Sundays work out was that he had to get started real early with the golf, then have time with the family later in the day. But the problem was, at about 6 in the morning or whenever it was, sleep was calling him, and so was golf. And fortunately, many a time he listened to the sleep. And it was not uncommon for his golf buddies to show up at the house, throw some stones at the window, and tell Bernie it's time to get up already. We have an early round of golf. After losing Beatrice, a beautiful friend and a beautiful relationship for all those years, it was hard. But fortunately, everyone loved Bernie. Everyone wanted to think of a good shidduch for such a lovely man. And such a shidduch was given to him in the form of Blanche. And they were truly a great match, and they gave each other 27 wonderful years. And they really seemed to complement each other in so many different ways. Blanche loved the fact that she had married a wonderful man, that he was just so good and kind and caring, and how all of their families came together so nicely. But the funny thing is, if you ask Blanche about their first date, you won't get their traditional first date story. Blanche apparently was wearing this lovely white coat that she was very proud of, and she looked very good in, no doubt. But the first thing that Bernie said when he greeted her at the door was that the white coat is going to have to go. And sure enough, Blanche got rid of the coat, and the rest was history. So again, there's so many things that I would want to say about him as a person, but I cannot say. I can't explain to you what it was like yesterday, meeting with the family. And whenever the Beckermans and the extended family come out in Mass, it's a lot of people. Here I was, this one little guy, the rabbi, and about 40 of them in a room wanting to tell me all the stories about their beloved father and grandfather. It was quite amazing. But a few little things that I will keep quick. He was the type of person who was very good at worrying about people. He had perfected the art of how to worry efficiently and effectively and abundantly. And he was the guy who was looking out the window when his young ladies were out on the town on a given night. Not looking out every 10 minutes out the window, but almost every minute. But the thing is, when the girls would come home a little later than they were supposed to, he never held a grudge or was angry. He got over it very quickly. Every detail of the lives of his family was super important to him. If one of his sons-in-laws were on a business trip, it wasn't good enough to say that so-and-so, that Todd will be out of town for a week or two, he'll be back in a short while. Bernie wanted to know everything. When does he land? What plane is he taking? When is he coming back? And so much so that he would paste it on his fridge, where all of his kids were traveling-wise at any given time. And one of the keys to his success in life was his organization. He was a big-time organizer, and he was famous for his yellow legal pads that he would have all the time. And he would draw squares indicating groups of things that he had to accomplish and do, small lists and big lists. And the cool thing is that this list-making became such an accepted tradition in his family that it sounds like his children and his grandchildren have taken up the very same legal pad and big boxes. He balanced his checkbook to the cent. He knew how to track everyone's birthdays and never missed a single one. He loved his family just so much, especially everyone, especially the younger generation. All of his grandchildren and his great-grandchildren, to him they're always Champ or Bud or a special little nickname. And the thing about his grandchildren and his greater family is that they were all unique. They're all up to different things, you guys over there. Some are into politics, some are into sports, gymnastics, this, wrestling, this and that, everything these guys are busy with. But Bernie made it his business to make sure he knew every single thing about all of these activities that they did. He was on top of it all. He loved to see his children, his grandchildren, in action, showing him a wrestling video, a gymnastics video, that would bring the biggest smile to his face that you could possibly imagine. So, trying to be quick here and not say too much. But he was always a generous man. He always gave his time, his love, and his money. He treated his friends and his workers just like they were his family. He was a man that had a very strong Jewish identity. He never was a person who loved so much organized religion and specific things. And one of the things I remember when I first met him was that he wasn't into the formal relationship, where I was the rabbi and he was the person I was visiting. And it might seem a little sacrilegious, but one of the first questions he asked me was, do rabbis wear shorts? So it sounds like a silly question, but that was the perfect icebreaker. Where he told me, on one hand, I respect you guys, what you do. It's very important to me. I want to know more, but, come on. Just let's be friends already. And the funny thing that I will close with is that his Jewish identity wasn't always expressed in the religious, procedures, but it was in how he felt about the world, how he felt about his responsibility to other people. He felt very strongly that as a Jewish person, you had to be fair and you had to take care of the other guy. And his family was joking around that during the recent presidential elections, it's really funny that a guy named Bernie, for a little while, was doing so well. And he really pictured that that was him. After all this, Bernie, had socialist roosts. He wanted to make everything more fair. And, he wasn't into big business. He was into just the little guy. So to close, what perhaps has been a little more praised than he would have wanted, he had such a special relationship with every person. Every person knew him so well, so intimately. He had, like his family said, in the most beautiful expression of this relationship, he had like a special dance with every person. You have your music, you have your moves, you have your groove, and you have your feeling for that person. So he had with every single person in his life, and especially his family, a unique dance, and you felt that he was dancing just with you, one-on-one. He had so many friends, and everyone loved him. He smiled at his life, and his life truly smiled back at him. So we stop there when there's much more to say, but we truly know that his memory will be for all of us a beautiful blessing. So my words are just words, but to hear the stories from his family, the people who loved him most, is the most precious thing, the reason why many of us are here. So I call upon his grandchildren to say a few words.
So kind of as the rabbi said, if you knew my grandpa, you'd know this entire service today would really do him in. He'd tell all of you guys to get out of here. He was a humble man, didn't want to be recognized for his incredible generosity, his kindness, and his compassion. So for once, just for a short amount of time, we're going to go against his wishes. Today we want to honor and celebrate our grandpa with stories and memories written by all of his grandchildren. So I'd like to take a few minutes and share what each of his grandchildren wrote from our hearts. From Eli. In the last few years of his life, I tried to visit my grandpa at least once a week. I'd always find him in the same spot, watching the same channel, complaining about the same things. He was a man who didn't like to deviate. We'd talk for an hour or so about anything that crossed his mind. One day it'd be the Cavs, the next day it'd be politics. I'd like to ask him the questions that nobody else would. I'd ask him about the war, about his parents, or his childhood. Towards the end, he wasn't always able to articulate what he wanted to say, and that frustrated him. He was very frank. When my mom got a haircut he didn't like, he told her. When Aunt Rochelle made a meal that he didn't appreciate, he told her that as well. One thing he rarely told me was, "I love you." He told me he loved me 2 times that I could remember, both when his health was failing. He never had to tell me this, though. He showed it to me in everything he did and everything he asked. He kept tabs on everyone until the day he died. At the end of his life, he couldn't do the things he used to do to show his love, so instead, he just came out and said, "I love you." From Alex. When I was younger, all I wanted to do was impress my grandpa. He kept to himself most of the time, perfectly content to sit on the side and speak when spoken to. So as a kid, I wasn't always sure I was getting the job done. I remember when I was convinced I had started to grow armpit hair, I drew a big circle in ballpoint pen to show him where it was coming in. He smiled, chuckled to himself, and the joke was on me. As I became an adult and spent more time with him, I realized that I did not need to do anything special to impress him. We talked about my job, and he smiled and nodded. His eyes lit up when my brother came home from school. He would pull his great-grandkids in really tight for a hug goodbye. You could feel the pride radiating from him and flooding the room. I like to think now that all he ever wanted was for us to accomplish what we set out to do. I think he died happy knowing we all were doing just that. The love we gave in return was just an added bonus. From Hannah. My grandpa's world was built on love. Unconditional love for his wives, his daughters, the love he showed his son-in-laws, and the love he shared with his grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Nothing made him happier than being with his family, and nothing made me laugh more than when he'd tell all of us to get out and leave him alone. Because we all really knew that's not really what he wanted. My heart is full today knowing that I was able to say goodbye to him beside my family, and I know that he left this world feeling the same. I love you, Grandpa. From Erica. As I sat the last week and cried and thought and cried and mourned and cried some more, I keep going back to the same thought of how lucky we all are. How many people can say they were so close to their grandpa and were able to have their grandpa in their lives for 45 years? We were blessed with our grandpa and have so many memories of him. But the most important thing to our grandpa was family. Growing up, our house would be a frequent stop for him. He would pull up in front of the house, park the wrong way on the street, and my brothers and I would run out to greet him with open arms. Grandpa was there to share all of my life experiences with me. From him being involved in every part of our lives, when we were little, to getting the treat to be able to fly down to Florida to visit my grandparents. My grandpa was able to see me go to prom, graduate from high school, go off to college, and then graduate from college and graduate school. I was able to have my grandpa celebrate with Mike and I at our wedding and be with us to experience the birth of our two amazing children. But what I am so blessed with is my grandpa having an amazing relationship with my children, Taylor and Aiden. They love him so much and was so very proud and love them. I was lucky enough to hear my grandpa call out to Aiden, "Hey, champ," every time they saw each other, and to hear him tell Taylor how proud he was of her. I was able to watch the affection between my kids and my grandpa. I am so lucky to have had such an amazing, loving, caring, and giving grandpa. Gramps, I'll always miss our visits, our talks, and especially our hugs. You mean the world to me. Love you so much. This is from me. About 3.5 years ago, our family had a great opportunity to give a great gift to my grandpa for his 90th birthday. As most of you know, he played basketball at Glenville back in the early 40s. Basketball and golf were by far two of his favorite sports. In November of 2014, for his 90th birthday, all of us went to the Cavs-Hawks game. Now, as we all know, my grandpa didn't like big crowds, and he definitely didn't like to be the center of attention. So we just told him we're going to the game, and it's okay, we're all just sitting in a suite together. When we got to the game and up to our suite, there was a Cavs rep waiting for us with a wheelchair. My grandpa looked at me and said, "Where are we going?" He was really hesitant. You could tell he didn't want to go. I said, "Grandpa, just come with me. Don't worry about it. Just please do it for me." Well, that was the key. He put his guard down because he'd do anything for any of us if we asked, even if it took him out of his comfort zone. So we took the private elevator down to the ground floor at the queue. When we got down there, we of course had to stop and talk to the cheerleaders. He always had his way with the women. So ultimately, we ended up down on the floor for the Cavs warm-up. We sat right behind the Cavs basket and watched them warm up. The smile on his face was priceless. We just sat back and enjoyed some time together watching the warm-ups. The ticket rep came over and said, "Okay, we're ready." My grandfather thought we were going back upstairs. But again, I said, just come with me. He walked on the court and we proceeded to center court. He stopped right in front of Mike Miller, looked up at him, and said, "Man, I thought you were only 6'6". Mike Miller looked at him, laughed, said, "I'm 6'10", and happy birthday." We went to center court and we took place in the captain and refs meeting. My grandfather was the honorary captain for the game. We then went back up to our suite, enjoyed the game together as a family, and enjoyed a 33-point victory for the Cavs. Whenever my grandfather and I were together, we talked about a few things. First, it was always about business. How's business going? Are you making money? Make sure you work hard all the time and give it your best. And then it was about Chase and Reed and Julie. How are they doing? Give me an update and tell them I love them. And finally, we talked sports. Didn't matter, Cavs, Indians, Browns, golf. We would talk about how the Cavs could be doing better. He was always so negative about the Cavs. They should fire Lou. LeBron's not playing up to his expectations, everything. And I told him he was just like my brother. The two of them should go lock themselves in a closet and complain about it. I was the optimistic one, telling him, just give it time. They're going to gel. They're going to do good. These conversations are what I'm going to miss most. I look forward to having these types of conversations with my kids as they get older. I love you, buddy.
I'm going to try my best to get through this. No, Bernie didn't want us to be up here standing and glorifying him. You know, that's the theme here. But we thought it was important to share all the special bonds and relationships he had with all of us. That's a really cool thing for us. Bernie was definitely the patriarch of the family. There wasn't a question about that. He had such strong values and characteristics. What I'm proud of is a lot of these great characteristics haven't been inherited by myself in this group over here. So, for example, Bernie was a extremely hard worker. He believed you work hard and you'll be rewarded. Entitlement was not in his vocabulary. Even in his very last days in hospice, I'd come in the room, let him know I was there. Grandpa, Michael, I'm here. He'd open up his eyes. He'd look at me. He'd say, I love you. Nice to see you, Michael. Go back to work. Over the past few years, there's never been a conversation I had with Bernie where he didn't make mention of how proud he was with the individuals behind me and the individuals sitting in that room. So Conrad, Taylor, Cameron, Aiden, Chase, Reed, he was proud of everything we did. He was proud of our accomplishments at work, educationally, and athletically. We all inherited the Bernie Beckerman work ethic, and we all should be proud of that. As you heard the rabbi say, and what Robert shared with us from the stories, Bernie was an extremely selfless individual. We could go on and on about that. What I'm proud of is the way his daughters sacrificed 3 years of their lives to show that same selflessness and be by their father's side. I'm proud of that, and I thank you for that. They inherited the Bernie Beckerman selfless trait. I can go on and on about his traits and characteristics. What a lot of you probably don't know is with Bernie's last breath, so went the Beckerman surname as it relates to our family. There's nothing we can do about that at this point. But what can we do? It's to continue to portray the traits and characteristics that Bernie has passed on to us and help mold us into the individuals we are today. And more importantly, we need to pass those traits on to the next generation and ensure those characteristics are instilled into that generation's everyday life. If this is a commitment we all make, the Beckerman, and specifically the Bernie Beckerman legacy, will continue for generations to come. This is a personal challenge I have for the individual standing next to me, and I have no doubt that they'll step up and accomplish that. So, to close, Grandpa, Poppy, Dad, husband, uncle, friend, you might be gone, but we will ensure your legacy continues. You'll never be forgotten. We love you. Thanks.
We thank so much to his grandchildren for their beautiful tribute, and the strength that they show, and the understanding and the maturity that they show is amazing. And also the hope and the prayer and the wish for the future is the most important thing. That Bernie's memory, his personality, what he believed in will continue generation upon generation upon generation. Following today's service, we will be going in procession to the Mount Olive Cemetery in the Jewish War Veterans section. And after that burial is concluded, family will receive friends at the residence of Rochelle and Arnie Cohn. That is 5585 Kilbourne Drive in Lyndhurst. That's going to be today, Monday, following the services until 5 p.m. This evening, 6:30 to 9 p.m. Tuesday, 1 p.m. to 5, and then 6:30 to 9 p.m. In no ways people are obligated, but people who want to make a contribution, they could do so to the Maltz Hospice House, care of the Montefiore Home, to the Smile Train, or to the Cleveland Society for the Blind. At this moment, I'm going to ask everyone to please rise as we recite the memorial prayer. Then we're going to remain standing as the family gathers their things. Then the pallbearers will come forward, the family will follow behind the casket, and the rest of us in the audience will fill in afterwards as we go outside these doors to our cars. El Mali Rachamim, Shaychein Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechaina, Al Kanfei Hashchina, B'Malois Kedoshim Utahirim, Kezarakia Masirim, Es Nishmas, Bernie Beckerman, Shahalach Loilamo, Bavor Shanachnu Mispalim Bahaskaras Nishmaso, Began Eden Tehei Menuchaso, Lachain Bal Harachamim, Yastirechu B'Seisa Kanafav Lioilamim, B'Yitzor B'Tzor Achayim, Es Nishmaso, Adonai hu nachlaso, v'yanuach al mishkavo b'shalom, v'ne'mar, Amen. O God, full of mercy, who dwells on high, grant proper rest on the wings of the divine presence, in the lofty levels of the holy and the pure ones who shine like the glow of the firmament. For the soul of our beloved Bernie Beckerman, who has gone into his world and for whom people pray, may his resting place be in the Garden of Eden, and may the Master of Mercy shelter him in the shelter of his wings for all eternity. May he bind his soul in the bond of life. God is his heritage, and may he repose in peace on his resting place. And we say together, Amen. So please remain standing, and if I could have the pallbearers come forward, please.